He really went for biblical accuracy.
We are talking Paintball Massacre. This one directed by Darren Berry. And this one is a kind of a hybrid of genres. It's a mix between action, horror and comedy. I can't help but think that this may have been influenced from the Spaced episode where they go paintballing. If you're unfamiliar with Spaced, it was Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright's kind of TV show before they kind of got famous with Shaun of the Dead. And they did a paintball episode once, and I can't help but think that's a big influence to this particular kind of movie. But what is the story? So what we have a group of adults that are getting together for a school reunion. Now these guys are probably getting towards kind of middle age. They haven't seen one another for many years. So the movie starts off in a pub and we get to know our principal cast. And we get to know quite a lot about them, and I feel the characters, one of the strengths of the movie here is that you do get some good characterization. And then the next kind of day they go paintballing. However, this paintballing adventure may be far more painful than any of them had been anticipated, as there is a killer amongst them and deciding to kill them in a fashion of that somehow represents each of their kind of chosen career paths. What will happen? You have to watch the movie to find out. So let's talk about what worked. Okay, so I kind of mentioned I did like the characters here. We have a relatively kind of large cast. I think there's about 10 or so of them all together. But I did feel like you got to know the characters pretty well. And everyone gets a reasonable amount of screen time and some of a development. So you kind of do feel like when these characters are out, you kind of know which one is which. And for a relatively large cast, that's, you know, quite impressive in a lot of ways. And I think the cast do a pretty good job as well of making, you know, somewhat tongue-in-cheek characters, but also making them quite likeable in a lot of ways. And even ones that are kind of like, you know, your nasty characters, you kind of sort of love to hate them to a certain degree. So I quite like the kind of the cast here. Now, the movie has a strange tone because it's all set during the day. Obviously, people are running around with paintball guns and things like that, so it kind of has a kind of an action movie vibe, but we have a kind of a slasher serial killer kind of going after them, so it has this horror thing as well. So it gives it somewhat of a unique flavour. I mean, I guess there has been examples of things like Turkey Shoot, I suppose, in the past, but you know, that and a kind of a comedic vibe that it has going through it gives it somewhat of a unique flavour to it. Now, that might not be to everyone's tastes, I will say that, but nonetheless, it does make for somewhat of at least of a unique experience. And obviously the fact that obviously everyone's wearing masks and stuff, it does make for, you know, a guy who is a serial killer that much easier to kind of like move around within the group and things like that. To be honest though, this movie, I think is a victim of some of the ideas that it wants to put forward, because it is such a mix of genres. Because it's I guess you want to call it a horror film, but it's never scary. And I think this is because it's the aesthetic here is all in the kind of the bright sunshine. It never tries to be kind of particularly kind of creepy, and almost plays like a little bit of a whodunit. And obviously our guys are somewhat armed. You know, they have paintballs, so they can kind of at least give you a good sting. But it's, I don't know, you never really quite know what you're looking at to a certain degree. I always feel like this movie can't quite decide in what it wants to be. Does it want to kind of lean into horror? Does it want to go to a more action movie? Or sometimes people's kind of reactions to things seems totally unrealistic because it's obviously somewhat of a comedy as well. For example, when we have our group of school friends discover the bodies of like the rival team, you'd expect a bit of a stronger reaction, but we don't get it because it's kind of played for comedic effect, which thinks, oh, I'm watching a kind of a horror comedy then, and then you're kind of unsure, obviously, you know, is this kind of like, how am I supposed to be taking this? Because some aspects are played for laughs, some aspects it's kind of sort of taken seriously, and don't think about it too hard because the logic here doesn't really kind of apply. You know, how this kind of killer gets away with killing a whole team of other people, for example, in close proximity without any real weapons that we see and things like that. It, again, doesn't make a lot of sense. There's also other things here. We see one of our characters gets strung up, and they're only kind of tied by the hands, but they're just left to die for some reason by another character. I think, why was this person kind of left to die? They're clearly, you know, only slightly injured. I think the ending as well is meant to be, I think it's meant to be somewhat profound, although it just comes across as a little frustrating, I think. I won't kind of go too much into that. So overall, I've got to say it's a bit of fun, but I don't think it's a particularly thrilling film, and I feel the kind of the weird mishmash of tones may put people off, and it gives you somewhat of a case of blue balls, is all I'm going to say in regards to the kind of the climax of this film. I don't think that was particularly well handled. I think the film thinks it's being clever, but I got a feeling people will just be frustrated with it. But I like the characters, and you know, it kind of made me want to go paintballing, I won't lie. So I'll give it a 5 out of 10. It's not a bad film, not a bad watch. I liked it because we had some fun and interesting characters. But yeah, pretty much forgettable other than that, really. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.